4-player co-op, should we all grab that for hot co-op action? Alec. Nice. Quinton. Oh, it's fucking terrible. I reviewed it for a mag. It's properly abysmal. Cyberpunky Gears of War with tedious level designs, shoddy shooting, and awkward mouse support. If we played it together, we would never play a video game together again. Alec. That just makes me want to play it more. Quinton. No! 2010 was actually a pretty decent year, wasn't it? We had Mass Effect 2, Halo Reach, the conclusion of the original Gears of War saga was just round the corner, and we were still making jokes about Crysis, back when it wasn't a marketing stunt. But these were the days of a younger me, and that guy didn't have things like a large amount of disposable income, an Xbox 360, and was stuck with a Dell PC, with neither the ability nor the money to play any new titles. So what was I to do with barely any pocket change, but still the need to experience things like Mass Effect? Well, enter the Scourge Project episode 1 and 2. But no 3 or 4.
Do you read me? This is Reisbeck. Hold still and stay out of sight. There's an Agari patrol.
With a Metacritic score of 44 and a user score of 4.4, you'd be forgiven to think, haha, terrible game, a lamau. But it's kind of interesting, as I've not known a game to get a remaster only 3 years later, for free mind you, and that was before the days that remakes and remasters were a thing. But of course we'll be going in depth about that later. Right off the bat, there are 2 Scourge games. The Scourge Project Episode 1 and 2, which is the OG over here, and of course Scourge Outbreak. Now, the Scourge Outbreak is kinda like a remaster with ports going out to the Xbox 360 and PS3, as well as the PC in 2014. And what this includes basically is improved AI.
It was at this moment that he knew. He f***ed up.
Semi-improved AI, much better level design, lighting, textures, sound ambience, some more voiceover dialogue to better exposit what exactly is going on, and, more importantly, better character models. Although they're still not perfect. If you own the Scourge Project, you'll have Outbreak in your library, which was given away for free at the time of release for PC users. Now, because I'm a bit of a sadist and I hate myself, we're going to be checking out more of the original as it shows us exactly what needed to be changed and why there was a need for a remake.
So how do you spend your day? I spent it being productive playing the Scourge episodes 1 and 2.
This is also going to get fairly confusing quite quickly, as they're both named the Scourge. Fantastic. I'll refer to 2010's Scourge Project as the original and 2013's Outbreak as the remaster. So the Scourge games, what exactly are they? Well, they're kind of like third-person co-op indie shooters released way back in 2010, produced by Tragnarian, a Spanish-based studio located in Palma de Mallorca.
But it looks like it's a game inspired by like Halo, Mass Effect, Crysis, definitely, and Gears of War as well. Like all mismatched into one game.
It's kind of like if you took the decor of Gears of War, the mechanics of Mass Effect, and the co-op element from Left 4 Dead, but you know, they weren't implemented that well. So to answer a question that most of you probably already have, should you play 2010 The Scourge Project Episodes 1 and 2?
Oof, that's a bit raw.
Nope.
Well, you probably guessed it already, but no, you shouldn't. In fact, you can't even buy it. This copy isn't even on Steam anymore, removed I think around 2014, probably due to the fact that GameSpy is no longer a thing, rest in peace, so even if you were to somehow discover it in your library, there is a statistical chance that you won't be able to get it working. The remake, Scourge Outbreak, in case you're wondering, is actually on Steam for £4.79. I'll be talking about the remake later, but first, let's just talk about the experience of playing through the original, and maybe we can find out why there was a need for a remake in the first place. Destructoid, Jim Sterling. All that I can say is that it looks as if they at least tried to make an effort, but their attempt to create a digital small-scale version of Gears has been an absolute failure. Straight off the bat, there is no way to be soft about this. The original is so buggy, like really, really buggy, and not in a charming way.
I don't know if you can see this, but yeah, no, she's not going anywhere. She's just permanently stationed like that. That's, yeah, I'm gonna Hopefully she spawns in.
Playing this wasn't great. On a technical level, some of the bugs even stopped progression entirely, ensuring that you'd have to go back and play the same boring bit of level again.
No. I'm trapped. I can't get through. Oh. No. No, I'm not doing it. Well, this game has f***ed me a little bit.
It's painful to put it quite frankly, and while funny at first,
The animation for the gun. What? I can't get up the stairs. I can't get up the stairs. Our special ops team defeated by stairs. That's a joke.
patience tends to wear out quickly. It's also not the prettiest thing in the world, as the looks really don't help, even by 2010 standards. Everything is extremely ugly and dull, even down to the UI loading screens. Take a second and look at the interface quickly. It's like a proof of concept, not a released title. This is a sentiment that's also reflected in the environment, and that becomes particularly evident when you compare the flow of the original to the remaster. We'll be talking about the remaster in a second, but to me, playing through the environments with the original didn't feel streamlined at all, and there were countless stairs, corridors, and other copy-pasted environments for what felt like the sake of padding. These basic, dreary environments are going to ensure that you're going to get bored extremely quickly, as it all looks very drab with the same crates, textures, and lighting. Even these alien hive growths look like something straight from a 3D asset site, and this was before the days of asset ripping to create games.
Green gas, probably poisonous. Right. Yep, it's poisonous.
No shit.
I'm unsure what was going on behind the scenes, but it feels like the art direction is uninspired at best. Now, I love me some growths on the wall as much as the next guy, but this just looks incredibly dull, like a poor imitation of something from Halo or Aliens. Not to mention, there is this obnoxious brownish grey tinge to everything. And that kind of thing is a stylistic choice which works in things like Gears of War because you're fighting in the ruins of cities and it's meant to feel as comfortable as sitting on a meat grinder. But here it just feels like something that's been copied and pasted from another game without the thought of why it worked in that game in the first place. From a gameplay perspective, there isn't any variety in these sections either. Kill a certain amount of enemies, kill a sergeant, collect the DNA, walk through the door, and hold E. Go to a door, kill a few enemies, DNA, walk through a corridor, run into a room, collect DNA, kill a sergeant, hold E, run through corridors, etc, etc, etc. You get the point by now. It's an absolute slog, even with teammate command functions and abilities, which again feel quite underwhelming, and you can get through the whole entire game without them either.
Why is that command still there? How do I get rid of it?
The whole game is so much of a chore to get through. Everything from firing off a couple of shots to the animations feel either basic or just uncooked.
Oh no, this is not what I was expecting. There's not even any recoil. Oh wow, even like the heavy machine gun in this just feels like a pea shooter.
I'll tell you what it is, it's an uninspired implementation of what a cover-based shooter should look like, produced by like a committee of bankers, not essentially a creative team. You end up fighting the same spongy enemies again and again and again too, which doesn't really help.
Oh boy, I'm really looking forward to the rest of this game where it's just f*** off.
Even the alien things called Scourge feel like a pain in the ass to fight, where you have small and medium variants with the exact sort of same melee functions and the ability to fire out razors. While I'm at it, I'm just going to talk about this one thing that really peaked me off while playing this game.
It's not challenging if you just throw a load of people into the meat grinder. That doesn't make a challenge. It just makes it more boring if there's the same fucking series of cannon fodder.
Even the late game fights where you have these things jumping around still become a chore to get through. It really doesn't help you that you get a finite variation of weapons that look, feel, and sound god-awful. Like, the sound is actually so bad that it grinds your mental willpower down.
What are you doing with your pistol, you absolute numpty?
While there are several inadvertently funny moments,
They just all just rushed up. They didn't even shoot. They didn't even take anyone else out. They just took one person out and just stood there.
It becomes boring and transcends into a living hell, especially when Scourge attempts to do story.
With or without abilities, it's time to get even.
The story is incredibly convoluted, with the narrative holding, well, quite a few elements to say at the very least. You have augmented soldiers, power suits, alien meteors, corporate espionage, twist betrayals, and psychics. Now, all of those would sound particularly quite kick-ass in a 40k novel series, but here it's just too much in one go. It's all told to the player as well in the least interesting way.
You're very lucky to be alive, Echo. It was Alpha that attacked you.
Exposition comes in the form of this spy who, within the plot, you're trying to save. And he's basically drip-feeding you the whole entire time, and it all just comes off as waffle. Now, the flashbacks aren't really that much help either for two reasons outside of gameplay. One, your character is bland and uninteresting. There is no depth to their actions and they've done nothing to win me over. It all looks very surface level. Your character looks cool, so therefore I must care about it. Not to mention the banter and, of course, the terrible dialogue and voiceovers.
Alpha, what the hell was that?
Number 2, it feels like we've started mid-story in a campaign without knowing any of the stakes or players. Mass Effect juggles things rather quite well. Yes, some of the plot is explained through text at the very beginning, either through the character selection or title crawls, but many more details are revealed through the character interactions, and we're not juggling heaps of things until the second game where it's earned. Now, yeah, I hear what you're saying. Games are unique in the way that you don't need a story in order to play it. Fun gameplay.
I hate them all. I hate these bots. I hate these bots so much that this makes me happy. Currently, this is all I want to do within the game is just watch this happen. Even though the time for them to peg it takes like 5 minutes, it takes 5 whole minutes.
Well, that's kind of fucked in this case, due to reasons mentioned earlier. Now, back in the days when Jim Sterling wrote for Destructoid, upon talking about the multiplayer, he claims that the campaign is mercifully short, which I'm going to actually have to disagree with. True, the campaign, when you break it up into story beats and not exposition after expositional bit of dialogue, is actually fairly short. Things that happen don't happen that often. However, playing it takes up much more time due to how padded and how many times you'll be knocked down due to some glitched mechanic, even the small ones, like not being able to aim around a corner. Technical problems are one thing. The original Scourge Project looks awful in every way imaginable. It's not a pretty game and it's barely functional. There is a staunch lack of variety and the interiors are boring. The colors are grey and brown, the plot is convoluted and cheesy, not in a good way, more like watching an asylum film, and there isn't anything to keep me going but sheer determination to get this piece of shit out the way.
No. All right, cool. That marks it. That's coffee time.
Again, this isn't a good bad game. I wouldn't recommend installing it, and I can't imagine this experience being better with friends. But I just want you to keep in mind that with all of that being said, Tragnarian as a company has had no experience in terms of fitting together a third-person shooter. Before getting into the Scourge productions, their previous titles included Map My Mind, a mobile puzzle quiz game, and Doodle Hex, a puzzle fighter for Nintendo DS. Their website is offline, by the way, and so is the Scourge website too, with their last social media post going out in 2014, the same year the remake was released on PC. Now, Scourge is a big project with lots going on in terms of story elements. It's in no way a small idea and contains a large narrative scale, which would be pretty difficult to get done even by a AAA studio that has the finances and the human resources to pull something like this off. To be honest, the fact that it's playable at all is a miracle, and I can't imagine said devs slept on their beds too often. The Scourge Project Episode 1 and 2 just reeks of something that was put together without the time to initially think things through, and I think the quality was ultimately a casualty of this. Although take that with a pinch of salt. One of the few articles that we have from Rock Paper Shotgun described the original release as a hastily carpet-shoved episodic third-person shooter that hit Steam in the early 2010 to basically zero fanfare or reaction. With all being said and done, the devs probably weren't too happy about this game's initial release either. All of those poor saps who bought the original received Outbreak the remake for free at no charge. On top of this, when GameSpy went bust, Tragnarian went onto the community tab and posted, "We encourage you to play Outbreak instead," which is a much better version of this game and which you should all have in your library, as we gave it away to owners of the Scourge Project. So what about Outbreak? Before going any further, I'll just quickly mention that between the range of 2010 and 2013, the gaming industry had kind of fell out of love with chest-high walls and cover-based shooters. Sure, they would kind of come back in different iterations, but both Mass Effect 3 and Gears of War concluded their arcs in 2012. In order to do well, Scourge would have to do something special. I don't know about you, but I'm not prepared to plop down my hard-earned dough for a game that has me questioning why it exists just 20 minutes in. Scourge Outbreak is a pathetic excuse for a game with little to no redeeming qualities. Stay far away from this one. Only an incurable dependence on a third-person shooter will push you to buy this title. Move over. Seriously, there's nothing here that can attract your interest.
Not only is Scourge Outbreak neither unique nor slickly produced, but it's fundamentally flawed in all the key areas that a great shooter needs to excel. It somehow even manages to make the Unreal Engine look like a pop-in fest full of awful repetitive textures and jaggies worthy of the original PlayStation.
Well, it didn't exactly do great. With a review score of 40 and user score of 6.7 on the Xbox, although PC ratings were slightly higher, safe to say that the receptions were just as warm as the previous 2010 release. On top of that, according to Culturefly, the multiplayer servers, which featured cross-platform support, enabling PC and Mac users to play together, were still struggling to find enough players to start a match. Not a great way to start your title. But strangely enough, there was some middle-of-the-road reviews like Beyond Upon Grade from Hardcore Gamer, and currently it sits at actually 60% in terms of the Steam reviews. Quote, "Although I played the game through the original twice already, this one still feels like a fresh new game. They really did make an amazing job making an already fun game into something brilliant." There seems to be a sentiment that the remake was substantially better than the predecessor. So, after playing it, was it actually better? Well, yeah, of course it was. The weapons felt slightly more punchier, the bugs were mostly fixed, and there were slightly more explanations and extra parts of cutscenes to fill the player into the plot, so you weren't running around like a headless chicken trying to gather what was exactly happening. The biggest improvement was that the game had a much better overall flow to it, with the world seeming much more fleshed out than the predecessor, with fewer corridors and stairs. In general, it was a complete overhaul of the previous game, with everything slightly cleaner and overall improved, with the game looking much more prettier. Even the UIs, although not perfect, were cleaned up and given a much needed bit of TLC. These guys and gals clearly knew that the product they produced firsthand wasn't exactly great, and they'd gone about fixing it over 3 years. But damn, it seems like they're really trying to get this one right. Now, on to the negatives. The problems which plagued the original: uninspired fights, weapons without enough punch, still a lack of variety, and samey bullet spongy enemies are still within Outbreak. The bugs were terrible, yes, and the environment definitely needed some cleaning up, but the core concept, the story, the gameplay overwhelmingly feels lackluster. You're still running into a room, cleaning out a lot of bad guys, and then moving on to the next room without really a sense of progression, and abilities still don't have a punch to them, nor really a use to bring them out in the middle of combat. The game still feels unsatisfactory to play. Now, everything has been improved slightly, more things over others, but not nearly enough to the point where it's good. Not to even mention that the AI still isn't that fantastic either. But the point is, the core problems were still evident within the remaster, even after 3 years. The plot, regardless of the new lines and pieces to fill you in, is purely exposition.
Terrestrial genetic material.
It's not entertaining or fun to play through this campaign, and with the player base, obviously you're not going to find a friend to suffer it with you. Now, don't get me wrong, I think it's admirable that they went back and fixed a lot of things. It's not terrible like the original, it's just painfully mediocre, which for a game that's already gone past the point of where the industry's moved on from third-person shooters, it's just not going to be enough. I think this was a passion project for them, and they did the best they could. Co-Optimus already summarized my end feelings about this game perfectly. While it's fantastic what they attempted to pull off, ultimately it may have been better to kill the production and try something else. Something that could grow larger, but at the same time is scaled to the personnel and budget that they had at the time. I applaud their effort to make a game of this scale, but their time would have been used more wisely doing something else, a little less ambitious than the Scourge Outbreak. There is no reason to play this game because it is flawed in all the main areas that a shooter needs to succeed. And there we go, that's the end of that. Just a friendly reminder that if you like this kind of content, please do think about hitting the subscribe button and the bell button, of course, as well. If you're interested in me looking at any other games, let me know in the comments section and I'll go sorting through those and see if we can find ourselves a real winner. In the meantime, stay safe out there, guys, and until the next one.
Don't tell me I'm only a third of the way through this game. Don't. Oh, please. God, no. No. I was hoping that'd at least be the halfway point. Oh. No.
No.